Good morning, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. And we've been practicing together for a few days now and doing the morning puja, the morning practice period, afternoon practice period, and most of you have been at the Qigong, which has been nice to see. And then the evening practice period, evening puja. And so being in a retreat center and doing a fair amount of sitting and walking meditation, watching the mind can be pretty hard work, can wear us out, and so we might be experiencing some tiredness. It's to be expected. Also, I thought I would talk a little bit about walking meditation this morning because there hasn't been much instruction given, and any instruction really given on that yet during this retreat. And so walking meditation is a very valid form of meditation. And some of the Thai forest Ajahns would do almost exclusively walking meditation, especially if they had problems with their knees. It seems like actually more than 50% of people will have issues or problems with their knees or back. And so walking meditation becomes a very valid alternative to sitting meditation. And the Buddha even lifted this up as a completely valid form of meditation. In the suttas it says sitting and walking back and forth. So the practitioner, while sitting and walking back and forth, purifies their mind of obstructive states. And so during the walking meditation, it is something that's completely valid. And also it can be wonderful to practice outside and do walking outside to find a walking meditation path, which is usually between 20 or 30 paces, but generally we try to not have it longer than 30 paces because if the path is too long, then the mind is more likely to wander off. And when the mind wanders off, then we might wander off. We just might wander off somewhere. So rather than going for a stroll or just wandering off too much, then we find a path which is 20 to 30 paces, or it could be shorter than that. The Buddha is said to have walked 17 paces back and forth next to the Bodhi tree after his enlightenment. He spent 1 week walking back and forth, one of the 7 weeks. So there was a 7-week period after the Buddha's awakening where he was marveling at the nature of liberation and experiencing the bliss of full and complete deliverance from suffering. That he spent 7 weeks either under, at, or in the vicinity of the Bodhi tree, and I believe it was the 3rd week after the liberation, he spent 7 days walking back and forth, what they call the Ratana Jonkram, Ratana Chankama Chedi at Bodh Gaya. So that was said to be 17 paces that he walked back and forth. So we could do that. We could be like the Buddha and walk 17 paces, or we could choose a path between 20 and 25, or 20 and 30 paces. For myself, I prefer about 25, 22, 23, 24, 25, or is a pretty good length for me. And I'll tend to, whenever I come to a walking meditation path, I'll tend to count how many paces it is. And if it's 22, 23, 24, 25 paces, I know that that's a good length for me. And usually in our tradition, when we give instruction on walking meditation, then we'll talk about the speed of the walking meditation. And some traditions might, like a Zen, for example, might teach to walk or in the Burmese tradition, and some teachers in the Burmese tradition might teach to walk in very, very slow motion and extremely slow, and noting lifting, moving forward, stepping, and so on. And for us, we generally teach to walk just slightly slower than we'd walk in our daily life. And Ajahn Chah himself was known to walk fast sometimes. He would do fast walking meditation. Or in the, people would ask him, why do you walk fast? And he just said, well, it helps my mind to settle more quickly. So for him, that was helpful. So we have to really find our own pace with the walking meditation. I think the instruction of walking just slightly slower than we walk in daily life is good, because then we're walking at a very normal pace and we're doing a very normal activity during the meditation. We're not doing something extremely special or something we wouldn't normally do in our daily life. If we walk just slightly slower than we would in our daily life during the walking meditation, then that's something we can actually bring into our daily life. And when we are walking here and there, walking about, we can actually bring that into the meditation and consider that as walking meditation as well. So one way to do it when we're walking is to we can actually focus on our breath, but also we can focus on the sensation, the feeling at the feet, or just the body, allowing the mind to wander a little bit, so allowing the mind to wander within the parameters of the body. So, and we do say this a lot in our tradition too, we're not trying to do a laser focus on a meditation object. That's not what it's about. It's more about a broad awareness. I think of it as Qigong, using our awareness, or spiritual Qigong, or mental Qigong, where we're actually allowing the mind to do some movement, but it's within certain parameters. And this is personally how I hold the Satipatthana Sutta as well, where we have right mindfulness, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind or mental states, and mindfulness of dhammas or sets of dhammas, mindfulness of spiritual qualities. So a lot of the Thai forest Ajahns would focus almost exclusively on the first one, because that tends to lead into the others. And so the mindfulness of the body, and we can relate to that as either feeling and experiencing the body in different ways, which also bleeds into mindfulness of feeling, or we can actually just make it more of an analytical meditation, visualizing the insides of the body as being things which are just ordinary and not worth clinging to or becoming enamored with. Or we can think of the body as just elements, or we can do contemplation of the body as something which is impermanent, which is death contemplation. That's also within mindfulness of the body. That's also part of the first Satipatthana, is the death contemplation. So these are all allowable contemplations to do when we're cultivating mindfulness of the body. And mindfulness of the body is something that is easy to cultivate when we're doing walking meditation. Or we might just feel like the mind is in a state of being content and happy, and we can just abide in that state during the walking meditation. Luang Por Liam has a really wonderful little exposition that he wrote. He's been known to write a few things in his life, just very short essays or expositions. And he has very beautiful handwriting as well. And one of the things he wrote was after his visit to Abhayagiri, he wrote an essay on gratitude. And at another time, he wrote an essay about walking meditation. And when he wrote about walking meditation, it's this very beautiful exposition it's actually about karma. And he said that when the Buddha would walk, he brought into it the idea that when the Buddha was born, when the Bodhisattva was born, that he took 7 steps and lotuses sprung up under his feet when he took those first 7 steps, and then declared that his parami is full and he's the foremost in the world. And Longpo Liam takes that to mean that wherever the Buddha would walk, that an imprint of purity is left there. And so wherever we walk, we try to think, what sort of imprints are we leaving? What sort of states of longing or dejection are we leaving? What imprints of sadness and despair are we leaving? What imprints of contentment and deep happiness and purity are we leaving? So we can imagine our footsteps leaving imprints of our mental states during the walking meditation. And somebody who is a skilled tracker, who knows tracking not just on the physical level, but the very best trackers in the world are known to have some spiritual qualities and be able to see spiritual imprints in footprints of animals and people as well. And so a master tracker who's mastered tracking on every level, even on the spiritual level, would be able to look at our footsteps, and they would know what our mental states were based on both the physical and the mental aspects of those imprints. So to reflect while we're doing walking meditation, what is our mind like and what sort of imprints are we leaving? How does our mental state affect how we're walking? Are we able to walk free and open and at ease? Or are we walking in a very tight and forced way, trying to force ourselves into some box that we think we're supposed to be forced into, and that's the practice? But rather, or are we able to actually just be with whatever's arising and open to it and be fully present, and thereby start to settle the mind into a state of deep contentment? So walking meditation can also be a contemplation of karma. What sort of intentionality are we bringing to it? So when we do walking meditation, the ideal way to do it is, or the way I've found it useful and that the Thai forest Ajahns tend to teach, is slightly slower than how we would walk in our normal daily life, and trying to walk with a state of freedom and ease that we bring to it. But if we're not at ease, to then have that attitude of being very forgiving with ourselves and just allowing ourselves to be okay with whatever we're experiencing and putting space around it. So if what we're experiencing is some sort of resentment or negativity, or we're experiencing negativity directed towards ourselves because the mind just won't settle, the mind won't be the way we want it to be. The mind is it's jumping around here and there and thinking of this and that, and it won't settle, so we think we're not good practitioners, we're not good meditators, and all these other people seem to be settling and seem to be at ease, and only I'm just not at ease and not happy, not settled, and I must be some sort of hopeless case. And probably everybody's thinking the same thing, actually. We can't see it. We haven't gained that sensitivity to see the imprints that other people are leaving. But we can see our own imprints. One thing that we also do a lot in the Thai forest tradition is we do a fair amount of cleaning. And I've been noticing for myself, coming to a retreat center like this, it's most certainly different than being in the monastery. So things might not always be perfectly clean. And for me, the reflection of Sariputta comes up because Venerable Sariputta, the Buddha's foremost disciple in wisdom, he had a character trait where he was known to clean wherever he went. And if there was a walking meditation path that wasn't clean and he came upon it, even if it wasn't his own walking meditation path, he would look for a broom to clean that path. And then if there wasn't a broom, he would sweep the path with his foot. So he would just find a way to clean it however he could. So sometimes, we have these showers and stuff with these old kind of slightly slimy shower curtains here at this retreat center, or maybe a lack of toilet paper, things that we would just never happen in the monastery. If we were in the monastery, we have this shower that one of the monks was working on in the monastery, and it took months to kind of find the right shower curtain that was the perfect size and wouldn't allow a single drop of water out, and also finding the perfect magnets to put on it so it doesn't billow in at you, and then coming here and there's these shower curtains. It's like that same level of care wasn't put into the shower curtains. It's just like, oh, let's just put up a slightly ripped plastic sheet and it's good enough. It doesn't matter if it's the right size, and if some water gets on the floor, never mind. And if it gets moldy, it's okay. Well, you'll live. Never mind. But what would Sariputta do in that situation? So I was thinking of this, and I thought, well, so I took a shower in one of these stalls and kind of pull the curtain one way and water comes out the other side, and you pull it that way and then water goes out the other side. And so I was thinking, well, okay, no matter what I do, there's going to be some water that gets on the floor. And so I thought, well, yeah, and I didn't want to just take tons of toilet paper and paper towels and wipe up the floor with that. And I thought, well, most people, okay, what can I do in this situation to mop that water off the floor, but without being wasteful at the same time? And I figured, well, most people who put those brown paper towels in the garbage, it's just after they washed their hands. So most of those towels are pretty clean. So I just went in and grabbed a huge wad of these most likely pretty clean sort of towels that were in this garbage in there, and just mopped up the floor, and then went around and cleaned the floor a little bit with them. And then I looked at the drain. I looked at the drain in the shower, and it was just completely full of hair. And then I thought, well, that's a good contemplation. That's one of the 5 body parts, that what we call the mula kammatthana, that we do the contemplation of the body. So rather than just going into an absolute state of disgust and writing a note to Kathy about it, then I thought, well, I'll just take that as a contemplation, and that this is something I probably added to that a little bit somehow as well, and just that, yeah, this is hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. This is what we call the 5 original meditation objects that we give to candidates who take the going forth, the novice ordination. The Buddha has us give those 5 root meditation objects because this is what's visible. This is what's visible on a human body: the hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. And these are the things that create the most longing, and also usually the most suffering for us as well, trying to make these things look presentable. If we can't make them look beautiful, at least we try to make them look presentable, so that we can go out in society and not be seen as somebody who is just, not presentable or not worthy of being out in society. And so we try to take these things and make them as presentable, as nice as possible. But then when we look at the drain in the shower, then we think, well, that's something that's absolutely disgusting, and I need to get rid of that somehow. I need to hide that. But it's just something that was seen. It was just before it went into that drain, it was seen as something that was nice and something that we could, make look good somehow. So we can use all these things as a contemplation, and recollect that Venerable Sariputta was known to be very creative in the way that he would sort of try to clean areas that were maybe not being looked after in the monastery, or areas that other people maybe might not want to sweep. People might want to sweep the main paths, but they might not want to sweep in all the corners and all the paths, all the minor paths. They might not want to sweep. So Sariputta would be the one who would be inclined to go where others didn't want to go and sweep there. So all of this can be used as the training of the mind. We try to go where other people won't go. So we try to go to those places of the mind where ordinary people who aren't practicing won't normally go. We try to shine lights and do some cleaning in all of those nooks and crannies where people just normally wouldn't really make the effort to go or wouldn't care to go there. So we do make that effort. And the Buddha is known to say in the suttas that if you want to progress in the practice, you have to do what others will not do and also give what others will not give. And so one of the things that others will not do is go and clean those places that normally people wouldn't really care about cleaning. And to give what others will not give, that's being generous with ourselves and others, and also giving up what others will not give up. So giving up things like our views about how things should be, giving up things like our views and opinions, and thereby developing very deep happiness, very deep contentment. All of these things, all of these practices that we do, they're all leading us to very deep happiness and very deep contentment. But we do have to be able to overcome some of the resistance that we have to doing things in a different way or viewing things in a different way. So being in a retreat center, and although this is a wonderful opportunity to do sitting and walking meditation, there are some drawbacks to it, such as things aren't as nice, aren't as clean as they would be in a monastery. But the benefits of it is we do have more time. The meals are being presented to us, and we have minimal work and activities, so we do have more time for the formal practice, more time for sitting and walking meditation than we might have in the monastery, where we might actually have to do more things ourselves. But now we're seeing, well, after 3 full days on retreat, and this is the 4th full day, and we are starting to see that, well, maybe we do have to do some things other than sitting and walking meditation. We might have to take a wad of napkins out of the garbage and mop a floor here and there, get creative about it, So I've heard there's also this legal thing where we can't use the cleaning supplies because somebody might be inclined to drink them or huff them or mix them together into some new drug that just got discovered. And that having to get creative there too. And I noticed, I thought, well, how would I clean the sink or the floor or the toilet if I'm not given any cleaning supplies? What would I do? What would Sariputta do? So I noticed there was this Lysol air freshener in the bathrooms, and I thought, well, I could spray that maybe like on one of the napkins, and that would be good enough. Could wipe things down that way. So sometimes we have to get creative. We have to get resourceful with these things. So coming back to walking meditation, there are these various benefits to walking meditation. And I actually found with walking meditation, I think this is the same experience for many people, it's actually hard to get into it at first. So we might walk and we might think, well, this is just kind of a pointless activity. I feel like I can get deeper into the meditation while I'm sitting. But I found if we give it a chance and we walk, usually for me, if I walk longer than half an hour, or especially longer than 45 minutes, if I give it a chance, then I find it actually becomes quite pleasant and quite a good form of meditation. And so for anybody who hasn't done very much walking meditation, just to know that it's good to give it a chance. And if you really want to try to give walking meditation a chance, then to try to do it for 2 of those 45-minute periods. Try to do it for an hour and a half. And you might find that you're really able to start to develop a sense of ease. And contemplation of impermanence is a really good one for walking meditation. I know during winter retreat at Abhayagiri, I would tend to do a lot of walking meditation, and I would also tend to go to the same walking meditation path through, or maybe 2 or 3 different paths that I would, depending on whether I was at my kuti or whether I'm practicing down below in the cloister area, have 2 or 3 different walking meditation paths, and then noticing throughout the day, if doing walking meditation for sometimes 2 hours or more at a time, and noticing the shadows, and then not looking at my watch anymore, but actually just noticing, the shadow will reach that point at that time, and then that becomes a contemplation of impermanence, just the passing of time and how the shadows on the trees are moving over time, and then how during the winter retreat we do January, February, and March, and so the days are getting longer during that time as well, and the shadows are just moving a little bit differently. And so becoming observant of nature. And we can also just, if the mind wants to move around a bit more, rather than clamping down on it and telling it you have to be on the meditation object, really allowing the mind just to observe nature. If the mind feels like it needs to wander more, just allowing it to wander a little bit more. So when we give it a bigger pasture, it's less likely to just rebel and wander off completely. So we might notice the wildlife and the turkeys and the geese and just some of their characteristics, or we might just notice the temperature and feeling the cool wind on our face, or we might just develop gratitude for how clean the air is here and take some deep breaths and then go back to the walking meditation. So if the mind is wandering quite a bit, then not to become disheartened at that, but just to be skillful with it, look up at the sky, observe nature a bit, and just allow the mind to wander for a little bit. It wants to wander a little bit more, so allowing it to wander a little bit more before just gently bringing it back to the walking meditation. So this is how we develop skill in the meditation. There are also various benefits the Buddha talked about in walking meditation. There's these 5 benefits in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Fives. The Buddha talks about 5 benefits of walking meditation. And I'm not completely sure I'll remember all of them here, but there is this, one of the benefits is there's physical and mental benefits, and there's a physical benefit that one is able to walk on long journeys. So if you do a lot of walking meditation, you actually build up your stamina, and you find you can actually walk longer distances than before. And it's another benefit is that it's good for your health. And another benefit is it's good for your digestion also. So doing walking meditation or going for a walk after the mealtime, I've noticed various people walking around the pond after the mealtime, so that's a very good thing to do. And the mind is clear, and whatever mental concentration, whatever samadhi one attains or develops during walking meditation lasts for a long time. I think that's perhaps the best benefit. And when the Buddha talks about samadhi, the way I personally hold it is that it's not necessarily going into some really, really deep absorbed state, but that there's a baseline level of samadhi that we build up through things like walking meditation and just the daily life of the monastic schedule, that we build up a baseline level of samadhi, and that perhaps we have more of a sense of samadhi or even absorption when we do things like sitting for a long time. But there is this baseline level that builds up over time where we feel more focused, more mindful, and we feel like we're able to have a better, more mental stability and less likely to just kind of lose our composure, lose our mental composure, because that baseline level of samadhi has become much stronger. The translation that Longpo Buddhadasa would use for samadhi, which is also what Longpo Cha favored and what's in the Wat Pah Pong chanting book, is Dang Jai Man, which just means the firm establishing of the heart. And so concentration, the word concentration isn't a very good translation in English because concentration implies tension. But if we say Dang Jai Man, which is just the firm establishment of the heart, that doesn't imply tension, but it does point to stability and a sense of unshakability. But it also has a settledness to it. So the way my own teachers have taught this is not that we're looking for some sort of laser-pointed focus on like the smallest point possible in exclusion to everything else. That is one type of samadhi, but in my opinion, that's not right samadhi. And it's like, I used to try to do that. When I first came to the monastery, I was really, really intent on just getting some samadhi and then, of course, getting enlightened as quickly as possible. And so I was really using Buddho as a meditation object and just meditating as much as I could each day, even just starting as a layperson in the monastery and then as an anagarika. And was relating to the meditation in a very tense way and really clamping down on the mind and really trying to force the mind into a deep meditative state. And I got to this point where it would happen, I would when I was going to sleep, I would be saying Buddho, 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 and lie down, and then the mind it happened every night for quite a while actually, and I started getting really conceited about this thing that was happening. It was kind of because it came from really clamping down and trying to do this laser-pointed focus, and the mind would into this kind of space-like state where I was definitely not aware of my body at all, and would be kind of like floating in space type experience. And different phenomena would be happening in that state, but there wasn't joy in that state. I remember there was slight fear. I can remember it very clearly, and there was slight fear. There wasn't like joy and contentment and happiness, but it was definitely a different state. And so I remember going to Longpo Pasano, then Ajahn Pasano, so before he was Longpo, and I was thinking, oh, that must be jhana. That must be the jhanas, because that was really a completely different state. And I described the state to him, and I said, "Is that jhana?" And he said, "No." And he said, "It is just a type of concentration, but no, it's not right concentration." So the whole focus was wrong. I could only see much later that the whole way I was focusing was wrong, because what the Buddha's talking about with right concentration, he's actually talking about an embodied experience. And then all of these similes he gives for the experience of the jhanas, they're all in the body. And he's saying, stay in your body, don't go out of your body. And it's hard to do because the body is, the more subtle our mind gets, the more we realize the body is just a painful and unsatisfactory condition. We want to get out of the body. But the Buddha said, no, stay in the body, contemplate the body, stay in the body, be with the body. So he's talking about these bodily experiences of either being immersed in cool water or just these very refreshing experiences. Or he talks about like the simile for the fourth jhana, the body being wrapped completely in a soft, pure, white, clean cloth. And so he does talk about these in terms of bodily experiences. So at least for us, we're going to teach, and other teachers might be different, but for us, we teach stay in the body, don't go out of the body. And sometimes we might have the ability to have out-of-body experiences or astral projection type experiences where we are able to actually do that as an act of will. Some people might have the particular abilities to be able to do that. And even Longpo Sumedho was known for having some really serious samadhi abilities even early on in his monastic life. But then he had to learn to stay in the body. He had to learn that it wasn't about having these really profound disembodied states. It wasn't about that. So really what we're looking at is not necessarily having extremely profound and deep samadhi experiences, but we're looking at developing a mind that's composed and in a very normal state. And walking meditation is something which is really, really excellent for that, really good for that. And you have a lot of these Kruba Ajahns, a lot of these Thai forest Ajahns who are well known now, disciples of Tan Ajahn Mun and so on, who did a lot of walking meditation. I think one of the most famous ones, his name is Longpo Phut, who was known to do 16 hours a day of walking meditation and do almost no sitting at all until he did so much walking meditation. And it's not like he was like running back and forth, like he would have been going probably just a little bit slower than a normal walking pace. But he did so much walking meditation that his walking meditation path became a ditch. And he was walking in this ditch, actually, just from the act of walking and just doing that for so long. And then it's said that his mind attained purity very quickly through that type of practice. Because if you look at it, our eyes are open and the mind is awake. So that the Dhamma contemplation and even the peace of mind arises in much more of a bright and apparent way. And then that either subtle or coarse dullness is much less likely to creep in. So putting in a plug for just during these reflections, just for some walking meditation. And also we only have just today, tomorrow's Friday, Saturday, and at the end of Saturday, the retreat's pretty much over. So putting in a plug for, even if the bathrooms aren't as clean as they could be, or the retreat center isn't in an ideal condition, I think at this point we just have to deal with it in our mind, that it's probably not going to change at this point. And we just have to make the best of the situation, recollect Sariputta, and make the best of the situation that we're able to. And then as we continue to do sitting as well, so even if we're not doing the walking meditation, if we're doing the sitting meditation, we can also contemplate in these same ways. And think about what type of impressions are we leaving when we're sitting. So Longpo Liam talking about those footsteps as impressions, but also what type of sitting impression are we leaving? And if there's some sort of longing or dejection in the mind, that's fine. We can actually curb that impression, and it can. So a tracker who can look at sitting spots might come along in the future and say, oh, somebody who had an impure mind but then purified their mind was sitting here. So one quality of the impure mind is that it can be purified. Nothing is fixed. This is the positive side of impermanence. So the impure mind can be purified. Sadness can be turned into happiness. Anger can be let go of. So that's the positive side of impermanence that we use in terms of the practice. None of these things are fixed, and just because we might be experiencing some sort of negative mental states doesn't mean we need to be defining ourselves in that way. But we can just slowly say, well, how do I find a way forward with this? This is what's happening. This is the reality of the situation. I'm not going to deny it, but I'll open up to it and say, how can I work with this? How can I keep moving forward with this? How can I curb the momentum of this? Or if it isn't able to change at this time and I'm not able to let go of this thing, then how can I put some space around it? How can I develop equanimity with this? And all of these things are going to really help with the purification process of the mind. We can sit for a few more minutes until 9:15. I'll ring the bell and we can either keep sitting or do a change of postures.